The Tigray War is an ongoing armed conflict in Ethiopia, which has drawn significant international attention due to its devastating impact on the region. It started in November 2020, marking the beginning of a violent struggle that has affected millions of lives. The conflict is between the Ethiopian government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, a group with a long history of political influence in Ethiopia. The TPLF was the ruling party of the Tigray region and has been a significant player in Ethiopian politics for decades. The war has caused a major humanitarian crisis, with countless lives disrupted and communities torn apart. Millions of people have been displaced from their homes, forced to flee in search of safety and shelter. Many are in desperate need of food, water, and medical care, as the conflict has severely disrupted essential services. The conflict has deep roots in Ethiopian history, with long-standing grievances and historical tensions playing a crucial role. Tensions between the federal government and the Tigray region have been simmering for decades, often leading to periods of unrest and conflict. These tensions escalated significantly after Abiy Ahmed became Prime Minister of Ethiopia in 2018, promising reforms that were met with resistance. The international community has condemned the violence in Tigray, calling for an end to the hostilities and the protection of civilians. There have been numerous calls for a ceasefire and peace talks, with various international bodies urging both sides to come to the negotiating table. However, a lasting solution to the conflict remains elusive, as both sides continue to struggle for control and influence in the region. In 2018, Abiy Ahmed became Prime Minister of Ethiopia, ushering in a new era of leadership. He promised sweeping political and economic reforms aimed at transforming the nation. Abiy also sought to reduce the TPLF's long-standing influence over the country's political landscape. The TPLF, which had been a dominant force in Ethiopian politics for decades, saw these moves as a direct threat to their power. They resisted Abiy's reforms vehemently. Tensions between the federal government and the TPLF continued to grow, leading to a highly volatile political environment. In November 2020, the Ethiopian government accused the TPLF of launching a surprise attack on a military base in Tigray, escalating the situation further. The TPLF denied the accusation, calling it a fabrication by the federal government. However, the Ethiopian government used the incident as a pretext to launch a large-scale military offensive in Tigray, aiming to crush the TPLF's resistance. The Ethiopian army, bolstered by Eritrean troops and Amhara regional forces, engaged in fierce battles with the TPLF, who fought back with determination. The conflict quickly escalated into a full-scale war, leaving devastation and chaos in its wake. The Tigray War has had a devastating impact on civilians. Millions of people have been displaced from their homes. Many have fled to neighboring Sudan. The war has also caused widespread food shortages. The United Nations has warned of a famine in Tigray. There have been reports of human rights abuses committed by all sides in the conflict. These abuses include extrajudicial killings, sexual violence, and the destruction of civilian infrastructure. The humanitarian situation in Tigray remains dire. Aid organizations are struggling to access those in need. There have been several attempts to end the Tigray War through peace talks, with diplomats from various countries coming together to mediate. However, these talks have so far failed to produce a lasting ceasefire, leaving many frustrated and disheartened. In November 2022, the Ethiopian government and the TPLF signed a peace agreement in Pretoria, South Africa, marking a significant step towards ending the conflict. The agreement called for a cessation of hostilities and the restoration of basic services in Tigray, including electricity and water supply. However, the peace agreement has been fragile, with concerns about its sustainability and the commitment of both parties. There have been reports of ongoing fighting in some areas of Tigray, indicating that the conflict is far from over. The humanitarian situation also remains dire, with thousands of displaced families and a severe shortage of essential supplies. The international community has called for accountability for the human rights abuses committed during the Tigray War, urging for justice and reparations. The International Criminal Court, or ICC, is currently investigating allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity, aiming to hold those responsible accountable.